Guys, you won't believe what just happened at a Target store in Austin. A billionaire family went shopping, thinking it was just another normal day. But within seconds, everything turned into complete chaos. People were screaming, running, hiding. And what happened next? You won't see this coming. Stay till the end because the truth is absolutely unbelievable. Are you ready to see how one family faced terror and barely escaped with their lives? If you love your family and care about their safety, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. And don't forget to comment below. Which shocking or suspenseful moment shocked you the most? We'll bring you even more unbelievable stories, only here, the Donovan family had always lived in a bubble of luxury and control. Richard Donovan, a self-made billionaire, thrived on high-stakes decisions, and Emily, his wife, balanced his intensity with warmth and calm. Their teenage daughter, Sophie, was full of life, oblivious to how quickly safety could vanish. It was a sunny Saturday morning in Austin. The family decided to make a simple trip to Target. Richard wanted rare coffee beans, Emily sought home decor items, and Sophie was excited for new sneakers. It seemed ordinary, a mundane outing in a world of comfort. The parking lot was bustling with weekend shoppers, the smell of baked goods drifting through the store. Laughter, chatter, and the hum of normal life filled the air. As they entered the store, Richard led confidently while Emily and Sophie followed, laughing lightly. The aisles were lined with familiar products, the lighting warm, the environment calm. Nothing suggested that this day would become a nightmare. Suddenly, a deafening bang shattered the calm. Shoppers froze, carts rattling, children screaming. Another bang followed, and another. Panic erupted. People ran in all directions. Bright aisles of Target transformed into a chaotic maze of terror. Richard's mind went into survival mode. He grabbed Emily's hand and shielded Sophie, pressing them low behind a display. The instinct to protect his family surged. Richard's eyes scanned the store for escape routes. In the corner, partially hidden behind electronics, he noticed a small, unmarked back exit. It offered hope, but reaching it meant navigating through chaos, avoiding the unpredictable shooter, and staying alive. Emily whispered prayers while Sophie's grip tightened around her father's hand. "We move on my count," Richard whispered. Emily nodded. A lull in the shooter's movements gave them a narrow window. Inch by inch they advanced. Shelves toppled, carts scattered. Shadows flickered unpredictably, forcing Richard to adapt constantly. Every step was calculated, every breath a delicate balance between life and death. A loud crash erupted nearby. A shelf had fallen. Dust filled the air. A shadow moved behind them. Richard froze, his heart pounding. He whispered, "Stay close. Don't make a sound." Sophie whimpered, "Daddy, I'm scared." Richard's grip tightened. "I've got you. Keep moving. When I say so." They pressed on, each step toward the back exit a tense gamble. The emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows. Time seemed to stretch, every heartbeat amplified. The door was in sight, yet danger lurked in every corner. A faint movement in the corner of Richard's eye hinted that someone else might be present, another threat, another unknown. The Donovans crawled closer to the exit. The shadows shifted. A deliberate footstep sounded behind them. They froze, hearts pounding. Richard held his breath. The air seemed heavy with anticipation. The door handle was within reach, but the world seemed to pause. The calm before the storm was over. In that instant, Richard realized wealth and status meant nothing here. Only survival mattered. Only the fragile thread that held his family together counted. The back exit was near, but what awaited them beyond it would shatter their sense of safety, control, and certainty forever. The family pressed forward, tension high, sweat and fear mingling. Every instinct screamed caution, but hope pushed them onward. The shadows whispered warnings, the flickers of light hinted at danger, and every step carried the weight of life itself. The Donovans were so close, yet the terror that awaited them was far from over. And then, in a heartbeat, the scene seemed suspended, threat, hope, fear, and uncertainty all hanging in the balance. What happened next would change everything, and nothing would ever be the same again. The back exit loomed ahead like a fragile thread of hope. Richard's hand trembled slightly as he reached for the handle, every instinct screaming that danger was closer than ever. Emily's whispered prayers filled the tense silence, and Sophie clutched her father's arm, her small face pale and scared. The familiar world outside had vanished. The Target store had become a maze of fear, every aisle a potential trap. Just as Richard grasped the door, a shadow moved across the flickering. Emergency lights. He froze, heart hammering. The shooter had returned, closer than ever. With a sudden surge of courage, Richard pulled the family behind a nearby shelf, ducking low. The air was thick with dust, the remnants of toppled merchandise. Outside, sirens began to wail faintly. Help was coming, but not fast enough. Each second stretched like hours, the tension unbearable. Richard's mind raced. He had to make a choice, rush through the door and risk being spotted, or wait for the shooter to move, and risk losing their window of opportunity. He whispered instructions to Emily and Sophie. "On my mark. We run. No hesitation. No looking back." They nodded silently, each breath shallow, muscles tense, hearts pounding. A sudden noise, another shelf collapsing, made them jump. The shooter's footsteps echoed closer, deliberate, almost taunting. Richard held his family tight, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. He could feel Sophie trembling, her tiny hand gripping his. Emily's eyes met his briefly, silent communication passing between them. Survive. That was all that mattered. When the moment finally came, Richard bolted. "Go!" he shouted, and the family sprinted through the narrow gap toward the back exit. Shelves scraped against their arms as they darted forward, adrenaline surging through their veins. Behind them, a gunshot cracked the air, ricocheting off the walls. Sophie screamed, but Richard shielded her, pushing them both toward the door. They reached the exit and slammed it open, bursting into the parking lot. The sunlight hit their eyes, momentarily blinding them. But the chaos didn't stop outside. Screams echoed from the store, people running in panic. Cars screeched to a halt. Shoppers scattered in every direction. And in the distance, the shooter's figure moved unpredictably, like a shadow detached from reality. Richard led Emily and Sophie behind a parked SUV, using it as cover. Sirens grew louder, police cars approaching from multiple directions. The family crouched, hearts racing, listening to the approaching footsteps and commands. Officers shouted, guns drawn, scanning the area. The shooter paused, seemingly unsure, and then vanished into the chaos of fleeing crowds. Relief washed over them, but only briefly. Richard knew this was far from over. The threat could return at any moment. As they caught their breath, Emily whispered, "Richard, we're alive." But how close were we? Her voice trembled. Richard shook his head, staring at the store, the reality sinking in. "Too close," he replied. "Far too close. Nothing could have prepared us for this." Sophie clung to him, silent now, the terror still fresh in her mind. But even as the immediate danger seemed to pass, another layer of fear emerged. Richard realized something chilling. Someone had been watching them, not just the shooter, but possibly others. Cameras, witnesses, the idea that their escape had been monitored sent a shiver down his spine. The Donovans were not just lucky. They had been part of a meticulously orchestrated scenario that could have ended differently if even a single choice had changed. Police cars surrounded the store, officers speaking urgently into radios. The Donovans stepped out from behind cover, raising their hands as instructed. Officers guided them to a safe zone, questioning and comforting them. Richard answered, trying to maintain composure, Emily trembling beside him, Sophie silent but holding tight to her mother's hand. The scene was surreal. Chaos everywhere, flashing lights, the smell of smoke and dust, and the hum of sirens filling the air. In the midst of this, a detective approached Richard. "Sir, we need to know exactly what happened inside. Can you tell us?" Richard nodded, voice steady but eyes shadowed by the events. He recounted their path, the back exit, the shooter's movements, every detail that could help capture the perpetrator. Emily and Sophie added fragmented details, their fear still palpable. The detective nodded grimly. "You were extremely lucky. This could have ended much worse." Even as officers worked, Richard's mind raced. He thought of their narrow escape, the milliseconds that had made the difference between life and death. He realized how fragile safety really was. Wealth, status, influence, they all meant nothing in the face of unpredictable danger. What mattered was presence of mind, courage, and sheer instinct to survive. But then, a chilling realization struck him. He noticed a figure across the street, partially hidden in the shadows, observing the family from a distance. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but enough to send a cold shiver down his spine. Was the shooter really gone? Or had someone else been watching, studying their movements, waiting for the next opportunity? The air, once filled with relief, now carried an undercurrent of fear. The danger, he understood, was far from over. Police secured the area and began interviewing witnesses. News helicopters hovered above, broadcasting images of the chaos below. Richard, Emily, and Sophie were escorted into a waiting vehicle, away from the scene, but the tension didn't leave their bodies. Each heartbeat reminded them of how close they had come to losing everything. As the car drove away, Richard glanced at his family. Sophie's hand still gripped his arm. Emily's eyes met his, a silent acknowledgement of survival, relief, and the trauma they had endured. And in that instant, he realized that nothing would ever be the same again. Life, safety, and normalcy had been irrevocably shattered. Richard made a silent vow to protect his family, to ensure their safety, and to never underestimate the fragility of life. But deep down, he knew this incident was only the beginning. Whoever orchestrated this event, whoever had put them in danger, had not revealed their full plan. The shadows that had followed them, the calculated movements, the eerie precision. It was a warning that life could change in an instant, and control was nothing more than an illusion. As the vehicle disappeared into the city streets, the target store receded into the background, smoke and chaos lingering in the distance. The Donovans sat in silence, absorbing the enormity of what had just happened. And somewhere, in the shadows, the observer remained, watching, waiting, leaving an unsettling promise. The story was far from over.